So when an organization is trying to change, you're absolutely right. Identify those innovators, those key changers, and there's a good graph, a book by Simon Sinek that I'm drawing right now. You need around 17% of that population
Cool.
for you to make that change. Focus at 17%. Don't focus on 100% because it's going to be tough. It's going to be extremely tough to have people roll the same direction. But if you identify that 17 point something percent, those not afraid of change, those not afraid of technology, whatever the case may be, and you focus on that, as you said, this 17 will spread it out.
Good afternoon. We're thrilled today to welcome Jeff DeLeon to the studio. Jeff is a Chief Operating Officer of CenExel Anaheim. Welcome, Jeff, and we're really excited to get your thoughts on leadership development in your very interesting industry.
Thanks, Sandra. Happy to be here.
Awesome. I don't know where to get started because you have a 170 plus person team in a very high stakes industry, and you've managed significant year over year growth. Let me open the floor with that introduction and just ask you to get us started with kind of what are some of the key practices that you use to maintain sustainable performance in this environment with your team.
Correct, correct. There's so many. Okay, so
Yes.
I think I will start with growth, right?
Okay.
Just a background to your viewers. We started with like 50 to 60 employees, and then COVID happened, expansion happened, and at 50 employees, blown to 180 employees.
Wow.
So yeah, in such a short time, in such a significant time for everyone. And I personally had some lessons in terms of growth. As you know, in running a business, growth is always there, but also the challenges is so many there. So one thing that I found very helpful, and again, I'm learning through the years, is just keeping that open conversation with your team, right? You literally have to allot the time. I know everyone gets busy, everyone gets bogged down with the meetings, both externally, internally, but really set a deliberate plan in terms of having conversations with your team, right? And those conversations will now seep into your data driven judgment that you have, right? Because again, as humans, I'm still working on it. We have biases, we have noise, you have hunches, right? And sometimes it work, sometimes you have gut feeling, but sometimes it doesn't work. So having those conversations, bring them through the journey, right? This is what's happening now. This is what I know now, and this is what we're trying to do. Kind of helps that. But again, having that conversation, I think, is very important. Even if it's like 5 minute stops, when I'm bringing it to people, it's like I don't have time. Well, you can bring 5 minutes, just have a quick conversation, just a quick an agenda. I want to get your viewpoint, and I think that's extremely helpful, especially if there's changes both internally, a company growing, and both externally, COVID happening. Nobody knows what's going on, right? So I think that's one point that I like to highlight at this point.
For sure. I love exactly. I mean, the performance, growth, and sustainability go hand in hand because, like you said, if you're growing, you're going to have change, and you're going to have to keep performing. It's a good problem to have, right? But it's
It
still
is.
a challenge in itself. So I love, I love to actually talk about them together because that's the reality also. So I love the idea. Okay, you have to have a continuous conversation going with your team through rapid growth with lots of stuff coming at them. And you mentioned COVID. One of the things I like to highlight is that it's not just what's happening for them at work during COVID. You have to also recognize at that time and regular life, there's lots happening all the time around us now, right? Like so we're just, stuff's coming at us, every aspect of life. There's lots going on at work. Keeping the conversation going is critical. I can't agree more. But as again, growth happens, how do we, conversations with your team that's like, a handful around a desk is one thing. But keeping conversation going at scale is
Yeah.
a separate challenge. I wonder if you just have any practical examples or to share about how you manage that as the size grew so significantly.
Correct, correct. Another challenge. I know we started saying challenges. Another
It's okay.
challenge
Yeah.
is different. Our company is very diverse. You have
Mhm.
different age groups, right? And you do have different ethnicities. So you really have to know how to reach them, right? So sometimes, like the younger generation, they're okay with quick messaging. They're okay with Teams. But for my approach there is in the beginning, in the orientation, I do orientation, just making sure they know me. But the point there is having that um, form of communication that will hit your message well, right? So I kind of have in my head divided. Let's say if it's a younger generation, are you? I'm gonna ask them, are you okay with doing teams? And I'm very accessible to teams. But sometimes some generations they want face to face, so that's the one I set up for 5 minutes conversation, as I mentioned. But what I really find helpful, and I think this is kind of unique in what I do, is just because I've seen the growth and I've seen that the need for additional people. One thing that I did consciously is I want to get involved in the hiring of the people.
Okay.
I know if you're a CEO, you have a lot of responsibilities. I get that. But in my mind, in my head, what I'm thinking is I need to build up a relationship with them so that in the future I know how to reach to them, right? So during the hiring, I talk to them during the orientation. I allot 2 hours of my time in onboarding all these people so that they know where we came from, where the company came from, where we are trying to do. And from that conversations, again, we have parts of this scheduled conversation that I kind of know how to reach them. So to answer back your question, it's a matter of knowing how to reach your stakeholders well. And once I go to that path, then I need to figure out also on those conversations what drives you, right? Because different people have different drives. And then this is part of pipeline leadership as well. When we're trying to gear up your people for pipeline leadership, then you kind of need to know what their core values are and what motivates them, right? As you know, different people have different motivations, some flexibility. But again, you won't know this, and your message won't be as clear if you don't get the legwork behind it. So again,
Yeah.
uh,
I love
am I
that. I love that, Jeff. That's very, starts to paint a really nice picture. So you're talking about picking the right team. So even though you're in the hundreds of employees and sitting at the top of this, large organization as a COO, you think it's important to make time to pick the right team to help even choose them. And then also you're looking at it being there for them from the first day on with the company to set the tone for them, get them, where the company is going, but also you're getting to know them, their values, what may motivates them, so you can start to sort them into the pipeline and have the structured channels in a way that works for them for continuous open communication.
That's right. And you can start with a small spreadsheet, and then before you know it, you have so many spreadsheets, right? You have your personality test there, you have your schedule there. But you're right. I mean, also, I think one of the of key drivers there is I have a responsibility for the people already here to make sure that I'm filtering them through. But they would say, "Hey, why did you have to hire this job?" Well, at least now I know there's standards there. But you're absolutely right.
It's the reality of it too. A lot of times I talk to people, no matter how big the role is and important it is, one of the things that I love that's coming through these conversations is the theme of we're still people working with people, right? We're still a people business. And, it's really important to stay, that's what I'm seeing as a theme from successful leaders is to really stay humble in that and keep it real with yourself, with the team. And, that creates relationships and a clarity that's really a foundation to
Correct.
sustainable performance. I love that.
Correct. And I don't know, one thing that really stuck with me when I was reading some of this part again, maybe a practical approach for a growing organization is I read this book excerpt about tribes before that the max is 150, right? You only have 150 people in the earlier tribes before because this is the maximum that the people will know you personally.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, wait, I'm now 50s, I'm now 120s, I'm now 150s, I'm going higher. So I kind of need to have a another pathway, so to speak, that they know me. Because I mean, again, I'm a COO. I'm not going to all the details about
Yep.
their task, but at least they should know me by name. Because this we receive an email from someone that we don't know. It's like okay, but however, if they say they know me, they know my core values. I keep that conversation. I know their core values. Then it gets more efficient. It
Yep.
gets the job done because we know each other. And again, it's hard, and we learn through our mistakes. We learn through it, but I think it's important. That kind of stuck with me. The 150. If you're more than 150, you need to have a specific way, a
That's
creative
cool.
way, so
I
that
haven't
they know
heard
you.
that, but I love
Yeah,
these kind
yeah,
of guiding principles, I call
yeah.
them, to kind of keep you in check and kind of keep you at least ask, aware whether, if this is working or not and checking in on those. And like you said, I like that you're using it just as a checkpoint, but you're like, I'm doing okay at 170 still. It's you're not breaking it, but the awareness is there. That's
Yep.
super helpful.
Yes, yeah,
One of the kind of practices I've heard about is a leader kind of developing a kind of like a about me, but in mix of professional, like just like that core values, mission, and even a little bit of personal preferences and style, and kind of sharing that with their teams. I've heard mixed reviews on those types of practices. It just kind of popped into my head to ask you,
yeah, yeah.
how you feel about that, because I've heard people that love it. Because again, looking at it from the efficiency perspective, I'd be like, oh yes, if I'm coming to work for you, I'm going to get to know about Jeff. I'm going to meet him in 10 minutes. I'm going to know who he is, and we can have a better conversation. But I've also heard people find it like off-putting, because you're like, just because it takes a little bit of human out of, standardize the human element. So I just wonder if you've tried anything like that, or what are your thoughts about those kinds of things, considering your team.
And you're right, Sandra. It's both edge, right? So one edge of it is the understanding that, especially in the tribe, as I mentioned at 150, the
Hmm.
title is not enough, right? If
Hmm.
you're a CEO or CEO, it's not enough for them to follow if they don't know you. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is sharing too much, like, hey, is this person using this personality thing to kind of make me do things that
Right.
I don't want to do? So it's a good mix. But I'm on the camp of, hey, I'm letting you know
Hmm.
who I am, what I stand for. Everybody knows in the company I have two young daughters.
Hmm.
Hashtag girl dad, right? So
Nice.
I'm more in that things of getting to know me well, and I do hear and try to understand their feedback. Let's say because some people, as you know, have different personalities,
Mhm.
could be introvert or whatever the type may be, that they don't want to have that interaction. Then I respect that. But I do have like a baseline of this is my core values and this is me personality wise. I like to have fun. I don't take myself seriously, but what we do here is very seriously. And then I just kind of get feedback from people that say, oh, it's good that you mentioned that, but I don't need to know that. So I kind of need to remember that in my head. But to answer your question, Sandra, I'm more on the thing that you kind of need to know me, not because I want you to know me, but I want you to understand my thought process about certain things, what my core values are. I kid you not, my core values is written in the wall, right? So all the
Love
decisions that
that.
I have
Okay.
filter through that. And one thing I can share is also have a leadership pipeline. Like I meet with them once a month. And one of the things I mentioned to them is as you go up the ladder, your decisions are going to be harder, right? Because your decisions that you're making now, is going to be done by people who are now supervising or leading. It's important to you to have that core value, what's extremely important to you. So you make your decisions, it goes through there. So I kid you not. I mean, when you go quote unquote up the ladder, the decisions are very diverse. The decision making is very diverse that you have to kind of know what's
It's almost
important to
like
you.
the core values, you're sharing that as more, even actually as an input for a prioritization mechanism, actually. So, yeah. Okay. Do you have any other kind of inputs when you're thinking about prioritizing for, well, of course, a company, right, for the right outcomes, but also helping people prioritize, with a team, for team goals, individual priorities? Is there some other tools that you use, that you go to help?
Prioritize, yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, part of this open conversation is literally going through the company goal first and how it aligns to your own personal goal, right?
Perfect.
I mean, I always tell people success is there if you align your personal goal with a company goal, right?
Yes.
Even if you're a rock star or a superstar, if it goes against the company goal, it's probably a tough thing for you. So
Agree.
again, having that join them in that conversation, saying be open with it. So let me give you a story.
Hmm.
So one time we are in a fork road in terms of where the company will go. Clinical trials, and that's what the industry I've been working in for the last 20 years, has been traditionally paper source paper charts, so to speak. It's okay, but it could be better, right? And we have a fork road in terms of we can go electronic. But as you know, any transition, it's going to be challenging, especially for something that we have been doing for the last 40 years. For the
Yeah.
last 40 years, we've been doing paper. And
Yeah.
now you're saying, oh, we need to do electronic.
But yeah.
So one thing that we did, number one, is we got a pool of people, the leads, saying and literally going through the discussion in terms of what the future looks like, and this is our option, and what is your view in it, what's a positive, what's a negative, things of that nature. So probably bring them along in the conversation, in the decision is one key. But of course, needless to say, you don't want to bring all of the people in that conversation just because there's going to be a lot of noise and biases and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, yes.
And once you have a group, let's say group consensus, now as a lead, it's now your responsibility to look at it, listen. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to agree with it, but at least have that information in terms of your decision making skill. And then once we say, okay, we want to go to, let's say, electronic source because it's more quality. We're in the clinical research industry. Data integrity is pretty much written there. Having go through this process is going to be extremely important for us. Then I pass it through my core values. My core values for the company is providing unquestionable data with world-class customer service since we're in the business of data. So I'm thinking right now, and this is by myself. So does this bring me closer to my company mission of unquestionable data? Yes, it does. Okay. I'm now going to present to the team, hey, team, this is going to be tough. There are going to be sleepless nights. There's going to be things like this, but this brings us closer to our company mission, which is unquestionable data. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. So that's one of the things that I'm doing is bring them along, the key members, asking for their feedback, and then giving enough time for myself to kind of think about it, see the positives and negatives, and then make a decision based on the core value.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Painting a big vision, making sure everybody understands the why, picking a choose group of change makers, if you will, that to take along, and then they can drive their own alignment. Let the alignment spread across the
Correct, correct.
organization, right? To those we will always have people who are like less on the change curve than your change makers, right? So then they can support and get the more buy-in. That's a really great example of a giant
Yeah,
transformation to share.
yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine just the 40 plus years of paper-based culture and working to a digital age. Of course, is going to be loaded with the change and
yeah. And we're,
require
we're still we're
strong.
still doing the change as we speak.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny. You did put up a good point, Sandra. So there's another book excerpt that comes to my
Nice,
mind
yeah.
about the type of population that we have. So when an organization is trying to change, you're absolutely right. Identify those innovators, those key changers, and there's a good graph, a book by Simon Sinek that I'm drawing right now. You need around 17% of that population
Cool.
for you to make that change. Focus at 17%. Don't focus on 100% because it's going to be tough. It's going to be extremely tough to have people roll the same direction. But if you identify that 17 point something percent, those not afraid of change, those not afraid of technology, whatever the case may be, and you focus on that, as you said, this 17 will spread it out.
17,
And before
17, right? Just to validate.
17, correct,
Yes, cool.
17%.
I was like, 'cause 17, I was thinking, is it 7D, 70? I was like, that would be a lot. I was
Yeah,
like,
that
a
will be,
little extra.
yeah,
Okay,
it's not a
17
good
makes me feel
strategy.
better.
17%. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Yep,
But of course, Simon Sinek has so many good
yep.
points on that. I'm glad you brought up your unquestionable data, the mission of that, which I mean, I love that. And, I'm an engineer by design, by design.
Okay.
I guess I have an engineer mindset. So of course, I love the idea of unquestionable data. And I know obviously in clinical trials, it's the golden, the golden rule, right? So of course, you and your teams are very data driven and there's probably strong data rigor in the workplace in general. So I'm actually really interested to get your thoughts on how to use data to have for the data driven people and leadership side, which is harder to do. And a lot of
Yes,
it's harder because there's always obviously people involved. There's always a grayscale. It's not going to be, one and zeros like in numbers, but I know that there's a strong role that data can help play in developing leaders in the pipeline. So I'm just so curious to get your thoughts on how to use data in general in this perspective.
correct. You're right. So as you know, data is another tool that we use in terms of our decision making, right? We already discussed about this. As humans, we're prone to biases, we're prone to hunches. I mean, going through the head of like a decision maker, sometimes we have that urgency bias that we just have to make a decision now to get it off our plate. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not, right? So what I'm trying to do is again try to build up on what I have. And in the beginning, as I mentioned, just having this conversation, putting it in a spreadsheet. He likes dogs, he likes cats, and
Hmm.
just add into that one. So in terms of knowing them better, but specifically for pipeline leadership, I mean, one thing that I can share, I think I'm humble now. One thing that I can share is I have this error of before, again, a bias of associating tenure, like how long employee comes, become a leader, automatically leader, right? I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
So the story is, when we were expanding, we were growing, that I need someone or some people to kind of help me lead in that way. And I immediately went to the assumption, hey, this guy, this girl has been with me for 10 years. He's charismatic. He looks okay.
Hmm.
People seems like him. I'm going to make you a leader. And I talked to him saying, oh, I want to make you a leader. This is the pay range. This is the salary. Oh, I like it. Right. But that wasn't the best decision because I didn't put enough preparation for me to kind of, number one, know if this is what he really likes besides a compensation package. Because sometimes people focus on that, oh, this I'm going to get. I want to do that and I'm going to be great. Well, sometimes it doesn't happen. So that's part of building a database for your pipeline leaders. Because going back to that example, when I promoted this person, there's a lot of more of ramifications. There's a lot more of problems that was brought about, but because they were not a good fit. And as you said, having um, data driven is important because the backside of it is there's a lot more to clean up after if you make the wrong decision. Because number one, if you're doing a decision that doesn't match your core value, then people now will start questioning, do I really know the company? Do I really know the thought process behind things, right? So having that data in terms of pipeline leadership is extremely important just because there's a lot at stake, not only internally in terms of the culture, but also externally in terms of the interruption that it may bring when you're trying to figure out things, and interruption in terms of conducting these clinical trials. Because at the end of the day, the pharma companies that we work for, I mean, they really don't mind what we're doing here as long as the data is there. But if it kind of seeps out, then we kind of need to kind of know that. So it's extremely important in terms of number one, having the data in terms of supporting your decision, right? In terms of what their core values are, what the company's goals are, if they match, right? If this new role match, if they even really want to be a leader. I mean, some people, which is perfectly fine, they don't want to take care of other people. It's a tough,
Hmm.
it's a tough gig.
Yep.
Being a leader is a tough gig. So having those inputs, so that's one thing is talking to the actual person, right? Another thing is you can do feedbacks. You can do 360 feedbacks from other people. And again, on this example, I kind of ignored the other people's feedback because I thought I know this guy, but I have this data already, right? That I didn't incorporate to my decision making, right? Again, that kind of snowballs really, really quick. So having that, as I mentioned, having that conversation, having that feedback from other people as well, it's a good start in terms of creating your pipeline. Because one of the last thing you want to do, Sandra, is having a vision, having put your effort, and then your actions doesn't match that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Um, yeah, that's a really great example. And actually, you took us right into kind of an area I totally want to explore there with you is kind of what are the key characteristics for a leader that makes a good leader? So, and I think I again was excited to get your thoughts on this because I know you have a very unique blend of clinical and operational experience, and that's what the company works in. But clearly, you have a very good understanding of organizational and business acumen as well. And of course, some of those are that's likely what you know makes you a good leader. Is this multidimensional background. Now, as of course, as a clinical trial company, you're hiring people where and you value their clinical experience and expertise and knowledge, subject matter knowledge, right? But there's this other side of leadership that's also required with, how does a company run and outcomes and how do we align priorities? How do we structure teams? How do we support people with their priorities and teamwork? All that kind of stuff. So I just wonder, in your view, I kind of mentioned a bunch of them, but what kind of characteristics do you think about as to make a good leader, and how does a company like yours develop though, that all of those dimensions,
Yeah,
or help them develop it, to support the pipeline
correct,
and the
correct.
growth.
Well, again, as you know, we learn throughout this. We add, we educate ourselves. We learn throughout. So one thing as at this point that I always see if they're a good fit for a leader is I give them like a small snippet of what leadership is. Then I want them to decide if they want it or not. Right. So that's the first thing that I learn is you should be open to it. Because I kid you not, after that error, this is the approach that I've been doing now. And there are people that I even surprised. I thought you want to be a leader. Like, no, no, I never said that. Right. So before a leader jumping to that conclusion, then there should have that open conversation of, hey, this is what a leader looks like. This is what I expect them to do. If you're open to it, I can guide you, and that's part of your second question. I can guide you
Yeah,
through a
sorry, I jumped
process.
in too.
Correct, correct. But if you don't want to, I respect that, right? Because we need your technical skills. I get that. So I think that's the first thing that I'm looking for if they're open for that. And then the second thing, again, throughout the process of guiding them, is if they're open for that perspective shift. Because as you said, it's a different role now. Granted, there's going to be sometimes hybrid. You still do the technical part, but there's also the leadership part. So if you're becoming a leader, one thing that I'm looking for is number one, if you can maintain a stable, emotionally stable environment. That's the first thing. Because we're humans,
I like that. It's a good way to put it, emotionally stable environment.
emotionally stable environment, right? I don't want people to be numb or anything like that. This is, as you said, people driven. But if I can have one one of the key tasks, one of the key abilities is if you can keep that emotionally stable environment that you have, right? Of course, let's say I don't know, oh, we're going in trouble. As a leader, I'm expecting you to kind of listen, actively listen, and say, okay, and then don't put any information that you don't know because you're building it or you're negating it unnecessarily because again we don't know. So number one is if you can keep that emotionally stable, and number two as a lead, if you're willing, and again this is not by order but just by clump, is if you're willing to take care of other people, if you're willing to take care and see their growth, that's a good sign of a lead, right? Meaning those leads are, let's say if they have a group project, they're not and part of this, they're okay not getting the credit, that's a good sign for me.
Mhm.
Or they usually lift people up. Oh, hey Jeff, I want you to know this person, your new hire, did this, that's great. That's a good sign for me too. And then lastly, as a lead, if you are, for those potential leaders, if you're okay with your how can I say this, your metrics being dependent on other people. Because when you're beginning, right, your metrics is just tasks. I do this, great, right? But right now, I kid you not, Sandra, I tell everyone, my metrics is all of you. Like how you do your job, that's my metrics. So if you're okay with that, those are the three things I initially am looking for those potential
That's a
leaders.
really great score, like quick scorecard for
Correct,
what
correct.
makes a good leader. And I love your approach of sharing with them, but also inviting them to say yeah or nay to this and then make it their own. And that's actually, and I know this touches a little bit on compensation and sometimes people have, but I'm trying to have these really open conversations. And I know there's a big push. So in general to be more transparent about some of these practices. So I don't mind to ask, and I hope you're okay with that because there's a bit of always like there's a bit of a traditional climb, and you mentioned this in your really helpful example of I want to be go up to the next ladder so that I can
Yeah,
get a
sure.
better compensation package. And a couple of things that's not the right reason to be a leader, which I know you believe in as you just shared, but it's also like organization has to really understand that should not be the only way for people to have a higher compensation package. So, because if you have a very strong technical individual contributor who understands that they are not meant to, lead people and create emotional environments, they should also have a path. Ideally, they have a path forward that doesn't also clamp their compensation path or forces them to go to a different company or something like that. So I just wonder if you recognize that, and as your company recognize that, and as a senior leader, do you work with to open up those kind of different pathways to
Correct,
keep
correct.
those resources where they should be, right?
And that's a good point. It's what we do. So what we do is we have certain, as you know, we have certain bands, certain ranges for different roles, right?
Yep.
And you can play with those bands. Let's say if let's say someone's doing a good job performance and could be in the middle. But let's say they don't have an official title, they don't have an official director or whatever the case may be, but they're helping other people or they're in the direction of going, then you can increase that band to this one, right? And it's important to know that yes, being a leader or being in a position thus is a clear way of jumping, maybe from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20%, whatever the case may be. It's clear. However, but you're right. It's important also to note that you can, and this is very important in our organizations, you can be a leader even without a title. We need to core values. We need to make sure that people are aware, hey, this is a great person, celebrate and things of that nature. And then privately, I appreciate all you do, even though you don't have an official title. I do see what you're doing, and here's a raise that you're not expecting. So you're right in both counts that there should be some leeway for that one. Yep.
Perfect. Actually, one of my favorite things has been a position I've kind of taken the last few years talking about where everybody's a leader, actually. You're like individual contributor, everybody's a leader. It's just your scope of work, responsibilities can be very different at different levels of the organization and the call of the leadership that you have. But everybody is a leader. Ultimately, a single contributor is also influencing the team, the room, the organization from every perspective in the company. So I
So you're
love
right.
to see that shine through.
Absolutely right. And that's a good segue to the pipeline leadership, right? So I mean, right now, as we like to have a lot of leaders, but right now we don't have a title. But guess what? We're the first pool of people that we're going to look at if you have an open position to be an actual leader with title. So it's important not only for them knowing that, but also the pathway for them. So going back to your second question, I don't think I
Yeah,
answered it.
please. Yes, yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So once, let's say we have the conversation, actually, I just started last year. We are doing what we call a paper cut committee. So paper cut committee, a paper cut, right? Is you get cut and then it's okay. It's not a big thing. But if you don't attend it, it could get infected, right? So what we have right now at CenExel Anaheim is we have this monthly meeting with next in line leaders, right? Again, I haven't given them the official title yet, but I went to them. I went to the leader saying, "Hey, Sandra, you're next in line. I have this group that you want. If you want to join, then we can discuss." And the goal of this paper cut, which funny enough, I have one today after this call. The
Good.
goal of it is to have like a free and open space to really ask about leadership in our company. Like, what does it entail? HR or decision making and things of that nature. And for us, it's a year, it's once a month every year. And then by that month, then I can have another conversation saying, hey, if this is something that you like, I will consider that if an opportunity comes up. So again, they have this space, they have this environment to kind of just ask.
I 100% appreciate the structure you have to your pipeline. Sorry, please continue. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Sandra. Sorry, again, 'cause my personality is going seeping in. I remember my dad teaching me how to swim. So I don't know if your parent did that, but they just put you in the pool and then save yourself. So sometimes leadership is like that, save yourself. But now that we know better, right?
Better, yes.
Better, especially if
Our
more.
generation is doing better teaching our kids with
Yeah,
like, yes, yeah, fair. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. But having a structure, may it be like I say, once a month. Sometimes people do it once a quarter. As long as there's a structure wherein people can test run it, sometimes it helps you to make that decision there. But in this, literally, we go to the common leadership topics: decision making, strategy, culture building, whatever the case may be. And then hopefully they can make a better decision for that. Because once you get a bigger organization, again, the action gets magnified really, really quick, right? If
That's
you're
really
going.
that's an incredible. I love that paper cut committee. That's a prep for pre-leadership launch to give people, and I would quote you there on time and space to learn about leadership at the organization and then decide for themselves how involved they want to be. Well, there's different paths for them. If they choose. Um,
Correct, correct.
I love the paper cut committee.
Yes,
I'm not going to
correct.
forget that.
Yeah,
And
it's
I think it
catchy. It's
touches
catchy.
on if I would I'll give kudos to that, although of course we think of paper cutisms are a negative thing, but what
Mhm.
I think it's saying is that it's not a one-off
Yep.
exercise, right? So it's like, like leadership, it's a part of, like, I like to think of, yeah, everybody's a leader, and then the skills and habits of leadership. Like, as what's percolating through this whole conversation is the ongoing practices that you are exercising, right? As it's going on. And that's what leadership in development, we have to do that also for people, help them develop the habits, the way of thinking, the mindset, and how are they going to scale that and push it and find their way to help others do the same. So I think that that's really clever. They're already starting, multiple sessions, cohesion. None of this is going to be handled in a one-off event.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
That's one of the traditional approaches I think we're looking to kind of shine a light on, that it's just not a fit for some of the, traditional things where you're like, oh, the most amazing workshop. I would even go, and we talked about Simon Sinek, and say, he's amazing. I totally agree. His books and input data change our life. But if you sat for one session with him, no matter what amazing thing he say, it's not gonna change the world, right? Like one
Correct,
off, it's
correct.
not. We need that continuous. And it sounds like that's what you're creating in your organization, which is super commendable.
That's what we're trying to do. Correct. I mean, especially now, I brought this to the team again with AI. I mean, you can have a running conversation about leadership with AI. I mean, just go in and learn. I mean, again, a lot of part of leaders, a lot of self learning, so to speak. But I also we want to share this with people. I mean, so we made a paper cut, right? So we finished the first year of that, and then I told the staff, hey, if you have like an idea or you have a thought process you want to share with other members, just tell them before you go to the room, paper cut, so that they
Okay.
will know you're testing. You're testing. Hey, this is what we did. What is your view in that? So again, as you said, that's ongoing conversation and ongoing learning, and you're doing it as a group. I think it's one of the important things that we're doing here.
I love that too. I think I would highlight that as a paper cut, as a label. You've created your own internal language. So somebody, you don't have to explain to them, hey, this idea, blah, 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 all this. You have a internal label that people really go to. I mean, labels, I always also I underline, are such a powerful tool.
It
They
is,
seem so simple, right? And
yeah,
easy to dismiss, but it worked in a negative and positive way. So it's like always, I'm like, use with caution. But look at that's a really great tip on not only of the paper cut committee, but it's become a internal language that people can use safely and quickly signal that this is an information sharing versus some decision making or something like that.
correct, 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 correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Jeff, I so enjoyed all of these tips. Like, this is loaded with practical tips and stories, and I love the personality. I was gonna say I had to just find a way to say I'm like totally appreciate your girl dad. I'm a boy I'm a boy mama, so I'm
You
like
know how it goes.
mama boys, so I can appreciate you're the opposite.
It sometimes I have to cut myself when I'm interviewing people because I shouldn't ask that, but sometimes I just go to that direction depending on the conversation. But
Well,
yeah,
I mean, like you said, it's a part of your values, your personality, and you obviously lead first with that. I mean, I'm also, you can't hide it, I'm the exact same way. So it totally resonates with me as well. But I think and I guess that could lead me to one question I would love to get your thoughts on too, is how to balance some of this like personal and professional selves, right? Like, and there's this, traditional approach of kind of, we're at work, leave everything at home. But, one of the hypothesis I have is, realizations I'm having is that really to be at your best at work continuously day after day, really you also have to be kind of at your best as a person, like overall. Like it's really difficult for sustainable performance to do your best at work while the house is on fire, which whatever version of that you're currently having. So I wonder what your thoughts are on kind of balancing that kind of professionalism at work, but with the idea that we really are people
yeah,
going through a lot personally, and how do you balance that yourself and with your teams and leadership?
yeah. Well, as we talked about earlier, Sandra, it's an ongoing process, right?
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
Depending on your life phase, depending on your life stage, sometimes that work and life balance gets blurred really quick. I mean, especially
yeah,
for us, we're a 24/7 facility. So my goal there is you find a place of harmony wherein two can coexist, right? And really identifying your core values in terms of that. Because number one, let's say if your life is good and then you hate going to work, then
yeah,
that's not a good way. Or you like
yeah,
work so much and you're not paying attention
yeah,
to your kids, it's not a good way. It's really a more of a personal approach in terms of, hey, this is what's important to me at my life stage. And you're right, at this age of technology, there's no clear demarcation of 5 p.m. I'm gone, I'm out the door, right?
yeah,
I think it's finding a harmony between the two that you can be your best self
yeah. Well,
throughout
I wonder.
both.
I would even wonder if some of the concepts you've shared with professionally, let's say your core values, right, as a guiding rule, it's like that probably is extendable to the personal side as well, right? Like I'm like, I bet in your core values, your girl dad moves seep themselves in no matter what, even the work ones, and having an extension of those for personal self to again help keep that whole vision and life moving forward is likely very helpful.
And you're right, absolutely right. So again, life, that's one of the things I was mentioning about life stage is being a young dad and parent. You're trying to kind of figure this out, but I found out that this still overlap anyways. So
Yes, overlaps.
they overlap, right? I mean, so let me tell this, right? You have boys, right? Being a parent is being a leader. It's the same thing, right? Being a parent is sometimes a thankless job, right? You work 24 hours a day. Your boss is not that good. But sometimes that glimmer of 5 minutes, when they say, "Oh, thanks, Dad," or "I love you, Dad," that kind of makes everything worth it, right? So same thing
Yes.
as leadership,
Yeah,
right?
so
You're bringing people along, you're giving all these investments, and sometimes they hate you for that.
true.
But sometimes you see this glimmer of, or they reaching their potential, then you're
Yeah,
happy. So you're
yeah.
absolutely right. There's a merge between the two.
Awesome, yeah. I love that. All right, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I've really enjoyed that, and I guess I was gonna say to close out our conversation, I would just ask, if you have so many good things going on, it's been awesome, but if you could have also a magic wand that will
Okay.
solve, a people leadership challenge that you have now or you've seen, I give you full things, what would you highlight?
Okay.
The
I
magic
think what
wand.
I'm discovering now, Sandra, is it's extremely important that people have clarity of expectations,
Mm,
whatever the role is.
yes, yeah.
And sometimes we're limited by time in terms of how much I can share with you, and we're transparent to a certain degree, right? But how much can I share with you and making sure that information, the same thing with that. So if I can have a magic wand, it's pretty much when I wave it, it's like, okay, this is the thought process. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're trying to do. So maybe that's it, is having that enough time and resources to make sure there's clarity for expectations for people. But every now and then, that's why the conversation is important, because you kind of need, and you'll discover, oh, I thought I said it nicely in an email, but it seems you don't understand the whole thing yet. So let me have this conversation with you. So I guess having enough time to make sure people are clear with their
Yeah, the
expectations.
time and the right kind of the right channels and to hear it the different ways that people like to hear it. So your magic wand would save you time because you're doing
Yes,
this, but this would be
yes,
just like a magical spot that you can
yes.
just do it with less effort.
That's right. That's
Awesome.
right.
I
That's
love
right.
that. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff, and your really helpful insights.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully your viewers find value in this, and thanks again for your time.
Absolutely.